Hi, if you or your children are suffering because of your relationship with your ex-partner, because it's stressed or strained, or maybe they're just not a nice person, this show is for you. Welcome to the High Conflict Co-Parenting Podcast with Brooke Olson and Charlie Jewett. Enjoy another episode now. Okay, everybody, Charlie Jewett and Brooke Olson here doing episode 12. Now, Brooke, this one's false allegations, and I see you have in hyphens or in parentheses here that this is nuts. It is nuts. You know, a lot of people going through this have heard the worst things. I was going to say the most amazing, but they're actually the worst things about ourselves in the divorce paperwork, right?
Yeah, things that we never knew.
Yeah, I didn't know I was bipolar. That's amazing. Our exes can diagnose better than anybody, I guess, right?
Yeah, this is funny stuff because when this stuff starts to come our way, it's so off-putting. It's like that sits you down in your chair and said, where did this come from? And I think that the important piece to start to look at, I've used this phrase before, and I'll keep bringing it forward, through these podcasts, but as with the marriage, so goes the divorce or the breakup.
Mm-hmm.
And when people are inconsistent, when they throw stuff that is out of the norm or out of your experienced reality, it's disorienting. And oftentimes we want to give them some benefit of the doubt, like, this is an inconsistent piece, or I didn't see this in the marriage, or they're misspeaking, or whatever these are. But we can see a trail of this stuff as it comes up. And I think the other important part of this particular conversation as we enter into it is that when people go looking for attorneys, they go looking for attorneys that match them. And some attorneys are really good at saying, okay, if we want to get this is what we're going to do, and we're going to create this false narrative to the story, and this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to go about it. And it creates a whole cascade of events that happen that are really hard to undo if you don't get out in front of this. So this piece of the first part of the outline that we're looking at today, when they show you who they are, believe them. It's like as soon as somebody comes around and they do something to really blindside you, hurt you, throw you in jail, call the cops on something that is totally out of what you would be expecting. I had one client one time, his soon-to-be ex had him come home early. He was sitting on the couch. He was watching TV, and the cops came in and arrested him for domestic violence because she had shown up with some marks on her arms, and she had called the cops and said he just did this. Jeez. And these are the kind of crazy things that can start to happen, and it caused a whole cascade of events that he then had to climb out of, which we're going to start to talk about a little bit later as well. So as soon as something happens, and sometimes even before something happens along these lines, we want to have a plan in place that is going to keep us from getting caught into this. And I think that having that prophylactic in place to shield from this behavior is something that we've really got to start to look at early when we understand that we're in a high conflict separation, divorce, or custody case, or we have a suspicion that this is going to be the direction that things are going to go. And my point is to this is let's assume the worst and then work backwards from there.
Mm-hmm. And these guys, in my experience in going through it and talking to other people, the system's going to err on the side of, they're going to be conservative. They're going to err on the side of protecting the children, right? Or the spouse or whatever. They're going to err on the side of caution, I guess is what I'm trying to say, right? So the person who's immoral or kind of having some issues emotionally that doesn't care what they do, they really can figure out how to use the system, calling CPS, calling the cops, filing restraining orders, all this kind of use the cautiousness of the system to continually kind of make you look bad and tie you up, right?
Right. And that is a really common thing that people happen. And some of the judges are starting to perk up and starting to see some of how this is being abused, if you will.
Yeah.
But that is not happening enough And there is a place where if something's going wrong, we want to pull the kids out of there. But trying to figure out what is what and where is really hard. And what some attorneys, some unethical attorneys will do is they will say, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to set this up and this is how this is going to play out. And what happens is the person who is being falsely accused of some of these heinous acts that are being accused of, they don't see it coming. And when it hits, they have to work out of a hole.
Mm-hmm.
And working out of that hole is hard to do. And you have to go through a lot of things to really show that this isn't what's happening. And then we go back to the disengagement stories that we've been talking about all the way along that say, okay, this is where we're at. These are the pieces that we have to do. And let's just start checking the list and going through that.
And the listeners don't know this because they just hear this professional side of me when I'm on my best behavior. But as a friend and a counselor in my life, you get the calls when I'm flipping out. And I mean, I feel like all I've done for 2.5 years is chase false allegations and go, how could it be like this? You know, I mean, how could somebody just say anything they want to, and then I have to pay to defend myself? And like, when do I actually get to the point where I make a case? Like, I'd like to be with my kids 50% of the time. You know what I mean? I've
Right.
not felt like I've been on the offense since this started with something quite bad, you know, some really terrible false allegations that were all proven to be untrue. But something about the system allows someone to keep saying them or make up new ones and graduate to another one and then fire that attorney and then find another attorney who says it in a fresh way. And it is like just being tied up. Like I still, you know this, I still feel like I can't get free from this cycle of allegations.
And without consequence on the other side.
Worse. It's worse. I was told to pay
when you're going. It's like you feel like when you go to court and somebody lies, that when it's shown that they lied, that's called perjury. And in our laws, we understand that perjury has consequences. But in family court, for whatever reason, this doesn't seem to have any kind of potency. So we have to start to get out in front, understand that there's certain things that people will do to set us up and to not take the bait.
Yeah.
Because part of what will happen, and you and I have talked about this, and I tell this to a lot of my clients and attorneys that I work with. It's like you see somebody come in that's really angry, and they look like that they are the problem because they're just really angry. And what they fail to see is this person has been in a relationship with this craziness for however long that they've been in this relationship with this craziness, not just the marriage, but the craziness that's been taking place post-separation. And they've been caught in this system that is not giving them any tools to work with. They're just saying, oh yeah, okay, go do this class, go take this thing over here, come back, try to figure it out. Oh, that didn't work. Well, let's do it again. And, you know, we're into this process, 20, 30, 50, 100, 150, $200,000, and we're still in the same place that we were day one or worse. And it's like, don't get angry.
Yeah.
And the piece here is, and that's the hardest part, is when you get angry and this stuff starts to leak out, it starts to leak out into conversations that are being had with your peers, with the people that we work with people that can make declarations, with attorneys, how you show up in court, then you have reinforced the false allegation of what this person is trying to do, because this is the behavior of somebody that's unstable. If you can't contain yourself, if you can't do that, it has this permutation of instability in it. And that's the trap. And that's the trap often that these people are trying to create. So, for instance, we come in and this false allegation happens. We end up in court on an ex parte. The judge throws in a temporary restraining order. This means typically 6 weeks till we can get to a hearing and really pull this stuff out. That's the err on side of caution. And during that period of time, you don't get to see your kids, or it's on supervised visitation, or there's some other set of circumstances that is so, I hate to use this term, but unfair. It's unjust, and it shouldn't be happening. And it shouldn't be, but there's a place where it should. So we're looking at somebody that's trying to figure out what it is that needs to happen. And in the meantime, we're in this place of a holding pattern. Our kids are spun up. They don't know where mommy or daddy is. They don't know what's happening in their world. They just know that everything is scrambled, and nobody can tell them what's going on, or nobody's supposed to be telling them what's going on, right? They just know that things are crazy. And you're sitting there going, holy crap. Suddenly I don't get to see my kids. They're with this person that is painting me to be a monster. I'm not a monster. I don't do those things. I've never done those things. And now I am looking at the possibility of losing my kids. And the anger comes up, the righteous indignation comes up, and we start to pound our chest, we start to pound the desk, we start to make noises because we want to be heard, because nobody's hearing us. And then they go, see, there it is. That's what I'm talking about. He's angry, he's violent, he's blah, 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 or she's crazy and she's violent, or blah, blah, blah. And we've taken the bait and we've created what they're trying to create.
You probably can't get any more like raw for me than that idea of you back an animal into a corner and then wait for it to fight back a little bit and then go, look at that, look at it, right? And sort of attack
Yep.
its behavior. I felt like that in the marriage.
Right.
And then, as I've gone through 2.5 years of this divorce, and it's absolutely infuriating, this whole system and the way it works for the person on the other side of the false allegations. And I still feel like there is no environment where I'm allowed to be me, because it's not safe to be me. It's not safe to react in any way, because the person can go, see what I mean? It's really uncomfortable.
Right.
And I'm sure people are I'm not the only one. I'm sure there's, thousands and thousands of people in the exact same situation to a much worse degree. I mean, both of the other divorces in my circle of peers are far worse as far as false allegations. One of my best friends, his ex stole the children over a Christmas vacation and got all 3 of them to say that he molested them sexually, which turned out to be completely untrue. And we're talking $50,000-$60,000 later. Now at this point, 11 months later, it still hasn't been able to get the kids back.
Right.
It's just not set up that it's. I mean, all of us who are in this process, like, God, I can't wait to get out of this world, because this is a gnarly world.
It is, and getting out of it is so treacherous, especially if you've gotten behind the curve on it. And the other thing that is so important in this conversation, in the big picture, Charlie, that you and I've talked about as well, is changing how we process that anger, and not just stuff it and don't act like ourselves, but transmute it into something that actually looks and feels different. And that is a huge process, because every step of the way in this, there is a moment, there is a possibility, there is a potential to have something come out of us that projects that out, that gets us into trouble. And you've heard me say this many, many times: how you do everything, how you do anything is how you do everything. So if our consistency is to be able to process, to slow down, to analyze, to work through, to be in relationship with the people that we have to be in relationship with, to solve the problems, if we do that every single time, that's what we're going to do every single time. If we don't do it every single time, there's going to be a moment where we don't. And that's the place where we typically get into trouble. So we want to just really, for me, this is an internal process. This is a place of, really working with mindfulness, working with our internal nervous system to really self-regulate, to find places to not get into big energy and just to keep working the problem. But that's a monumental task, isn't it?
Yeah.
It takes everything that we can do in a given moment to get through that. Yeah.
Jeez. I mean, if you look at if you think life is happening for you instead of to you, at some level, to stay sane, we have to think like this is somehow needed. I was going to say good. No, I'm picturing you saying something about dualistic. Somehow it's important or needed, right? Or healthy, or like who we have to become to tolerate it and get through it. And then when the lesson's done, it'll end, right?
Kind of. But what a hell of a lesson, huh?
It's horrible. It's like brain surgery, or like I haven't had many surgeries in my life. I had a ACL replacement and it was horrendous. I mean, it was like absolutely horrible, the pain I was in and how long I was off the leg and then trying to, get back. And I'm a year later and still not the same. And there's a lot worse surgeries than that. This is not, I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemies, man.
And I put it in our outline here, don't be a Pollyanna.
Yeah.
Don't put your head in the ground. Don't think that, that's not really them, or this isn't gonna go in that direction, or I don't have to put all of these things into my parenting plan to shield me and the children from this. No, it won't go there. No, it will go there. And we have to really stay in that place of being prepared for it to go there.
Yeah.
And we don't want to. I mean, that's not how we want to live our lives. But we can do this in a way where it doesn't take over everything in our lives. It's a matter of setting it up in advance, protecting against it, and then having those things there so we don't have this come up and have to dig out of the hole.
Yeah, and that's the only place we can go with this, if there is any protection at all. If lying in court is normal and you can hire people that are really good at lying, an unethical attorney, right? And then many times even get the other side to pay for your unethical attorney, which is the most offensive part of my life in this whole system that I've seen, having to pay for, the fourth attempt to say the same false allegations. How do you protect yourself against this? What do people who are listening to this? I mean, a lot of them are going to be behind already. Some people are going to be finding this at the perfect time and be able to get ahead of it or hire you to help or whatever. But a lot of the people who are hearing this are going to already be years into this or months into this, right?
Right.
Way behind the eight ball, just playing chase. How in the world does anybody protect themselves against this?
The protection starts at whatever place that you're at. And sitting down and laying out a strategy of what has to happen here. What do we need to do? What do I need to do to keep somebody from saying something about me that is going to have to be defended on some level, that I'm going to have to spend money for, that I'm going to have to hire an attorney for, that I'm going to have to bail myself out of jail for, whatever those components are. And to start to take the things and put them into play right off the bat. So one of the first things that's got to happen here is to stay away from any conversation or anything that is going to make a hearsay argument, where somebody can throw something out that has no grounds for and that you can point to, or you can't point to.
Mm-hmm.
So we've talked about using our tools of our family wizard, of staying away from any conversations that somebody can say, hey, they called me, they did this, and they threatened me, or any number of things that might have come out of that. Or I'm in front of them face to face, and they did this. So the first part of that is to just absolutely get away from any kind of face to face or verbal conversation. Those are one of the biggest rules of disengagement, right?
Yeah.
And if I can point at, listen, there's no phone record of that phone call. It never happened. I never am face to face with them because I have put into the court order and got into the agreements that we do our exchanges at school or in a place of public or with a supervised visitation monitor or exchange monitor, then we've eliminated that. And now we've got that list of stuff. You want to look at the conversations, you want to look at what's taking place, here it is. So there's been no threats, there's been no physical threats because I haven't been around them. Now we're talking about the kids, right? Because a lot of these false allegations come to actions that we've done with the kids, whether it's been inappropriate behavior, whether it's been physical violence, spanking, whatever those pieces may be that they're alleging. So we want to put that piece in, and we've talked about therapists for the kids, and that is for our protection and for the protection of the kids. It's that, and when we find where there's places where people don't want to have a therapist for the kids, there's something going on here. And the professionals need to be able to see that, because this is, when we look at trying to help people, when we're caregivers, when we're in this arena, whether we're attorneys or therapists or doctors or whatever line that we're in that, it should be a do no harm piece, right? We want to look at how do we err on the side of caution and do no harm. So if a child needs a therapist, where's the harm in having a therapist? Well, the only harm in having a therapist is the kids might talk about something that I don't want them to talk about.
So
I don't want to make them a therapist.
It's kind of a red flag then, right? If one of the exes is seriously anti-therapist.
Right. And since the court is set up in a way that you cannot take your children to a therapist, a mental health professional, without the other parent's approval, now we got a problem, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
And the idea should be is, yes, the children should be in therapy. Let's pick 2 or 3, pick from one of the 2 or 3, and let's move forward as quickly as we can, rather than have somebody that tries to extend this out for years and years on end. So when I'm having a conversation with an attorney, when I'm having a conversation with a judge about these types of things, my statement to them is this is that person that we're putting in the middle of the conversation that is a mandated reporter, and if the kids have something to say, they've got somebody to say it to.
Right.
And then that therapist, if they're subpoenaed and they need to come into court and have that conversation, then now we've got somebody that can really talk to what the children have had to say. Mm-hmm. And kids, unless they've been brainwashed, typically don't lie. And even kids that have been, really brainwashed in that piece that we were talking about around alienation in the last podcast, there's also this place where their stories become inconsistent.
Yeah.
And it starts to show itself. So these are some of the things that we want to put in there. Security cameras around our home, right? Having stuff and or, doing our exchanges in places where there's cameras, where there's security cameras. So we're not fully exposed without some backup. Mm-hmm. Here's one that I love that people are really hard with, because it's costly. But I want to put cost in terms of the bigger picture, not the little picture. If I've got a client that I'm working with where this is kind of in the mix, where I'm hearing where there's struggles at the exchanges and the other person is getting big and violent, or there's this opportunity where they're trying to be provocative and engaging, I will tell that person to unilaterally hire an exchange monitor, to hire a professional exchange monitor on their own dime. Mm-hmm. You don't have to have a court order to have an exchange monitor. You can pay somebody to show up, and they're a professional, and they're simply going to take notes about what happened.
Interesting.
And when that is occurring, they can say, who's that? And they say, oh, that's my exchange monitor. They're just here to watch what takes place here. It shuts down the behavior, and it says, you know what? You don't get to play this game. And that's being proactive. And the funny piece of this, Charlie, is when I bring these kinds of things up to attorneys with clients that I'm working with that are in this arena, these are things that they haven't thought about. And they go, absolutely, those will work. That is something that we can do. Let's go in that direction. And that's $35 or $40 an exchange, and that's 4 exchanges a week, and that's $500 a month. That's 1 hour of an attorney.
Right.
And when we do this for a period of time, we have sent that message that this door is closed. You don't get to come through this door here.
Right.
Because we're paying attention to the energy that's coming at us. When we feel that there is something that can happen here, something's going to happen. Listen to your gut. Err on the side of caution. Don't be a Pollyanna. Don't be cheap here, because this is where it gets expansive. This is where your life turns into a living hell. I've got a client that I've been working with for 3 years in this arena. And every time he gets close, they throw something else at him, and he's got a duck. Well, he's finally got his ducks in a row. Different metaphor.
Yeah. Right? Quack.
And he's starting to get some momentum here. But it's after spending 6 figures.
Yeah. I'm hearing a theme, and you can tell me your thoughts on this, but you're taking me back to my Christian days, honestly, for those that live in the darkness, that hate the light and don't want their deeds to be seen and all this kind of stuff. It's like, it sounds like this type of person who's, breaking the law, doing things, selfish things that hurt the kids, all this, sneaking around. Sounds like any tool that brings them out into the light or allows their actions to be seen, one, they're going to be against it. Two, it's probably going to help you in the sense that it holds them accountable. They'll do less of it when everyone's watching. And three, some of it is going to be recorded by our family wizard or the exchange monitor or the therapist coming in and talking on your behalf. They're anti-therapist. They don't want to do our family wizard and have their communication recorded. They're going to be like, why is there an exchange monitor? Get all upset about that. I mean, that alone, people that aren't doing anything wrong, when you say we're going to put you in the light, are just like, okay, cool. I'll look good. You know what I mean? It
Right.
actually strokes our ego, right? The person, the not wanting that is a sign that they're struggling inside their own. They know they're wrong.
Right. And here's the secret to putting all of these pieces in place. And again, it's, why do I have to pay for all of this? Why do I have to go into my pocket for all of this? Because that is what is going to protect you. It's like, if you're going to have sex and you don't want to have a baby, you don't wait for the other person to take the lead on the prevention, right?
Right.
You take the lead on the prevention.
And you probably heard me share the analogy because it was so helpful for me at one point. I don't like any of this stuff. Or if you just look at the basic therapy movement or the basics of therapy, where we go back in childhood and find things that were done that probably shouldn't have been done. And somebody once said, if you step out your front door and a sniper shoots you, that is their fault. Everything after that, you go into the hospital, you did it, the ramifications, all that's on us, right?
Yep.
So these guys, these snipers, these X's, and it's not just a one-time. With these guys, it's not a one-time. They continue shooting, right? But no, is it fair? No, it's not fair. And you better get right with the universe, knowing that somehow this is, in the long run, needed, important, or good for your kids or whatever. Maybe the kids are watching as you go through this, and it's going to have a huge impact on them, right?
Right.
Not even maybe. They are, no matter what age they are, right? And if they're too young, they're picking up some sort of energy from this. But we just have to do it. I mean, I remember being at a business coaching event with Tony Robbins, actually, and Tony Robbins was like, if the government just decided to double taxes in your industry or double taxes on you, you just figure it out. You just find out ways to save money or do more business. But as a business owner, you just go, oh, I don't like that, but whatever. I just got to figure it out, right?
Right.
It's really not that different with the stuff I'm complaining to you about offline. Like, oh, I don't want to pay for these freaking attorneys and right. But it's just, that's just I don't control the weather. You wake up and go I didn't want to wear a coat today. I don't want to do an umbrella. I don't want to leave early and drive through but it just is. We don't control that. You just have to adjust, right?
Right. And that's part of, that adjustment is an internal adjustment, because there is that sense of indignation that comes up that why should I have to keep doing this? This is uncomfortable. I have to earn more money. I have to take money out of my pocket. I have to take time I have to defend myself in all of these crazy ways. But it is simply, like you said, the next piece that I just have to do. And if we're in acceptance of that, then we just go, okay, there's my wallet, there's my checkbook. I don't quite have enough money. I'm not going to pay you today. I'm going to pay you next week, but here we go. And we start to budget and do the things that we have to do. But to get in front of this is an austerity program. It saves us the money in the long run. And I'm here to tell you that most everybody that is going to go through this, if they stop and they do a good personal assessment and they understand both their history and the history of their soon-to-be ex, they can predict a lot of this stuff. Mm-hmm. And by predicting it, then they can start to put some of the things that we're putting in place here. It's like this idea that judges are going to have people do exchanges at their respective houses in anything that remotely looks like a high conflict because it's better for the kids is an absolute ludicrous statement. Mm-hmm. And for an attorney to stand there in front of a judge and have enough presence when they're putting the parenting plans together to say, Your Honor, I don't want to have this boilerplate piece in here. I want to have this piece in here instead. And this is the reason why. I can't see too many judges saying, no, that makes no sense to me. But this is the place of responsibility for each one of our listeners, each one of the people that are going through this, to have a checklist of things that they're going to do, things that they're going to put into their parenting plan, things that they're going to put into their MSA that dictate the pieces that are going to keep them and their children safe.
And that's interesting to me because, my situation, the legal battle, I thought it was going to be just peaceful, right? And the legal portion started with some pretty obvious signs that some unstable and strange things were going on, or you would have seen it coming, right?
I saw it coming.
This is, I'm on the fourth iteration of this. Uh-huh. But back the first time, it sounds like what you're saying is, if I had the right coaching, I could have jumped on Our Family Wizard as the only way I communicate. I could have asked FCS the first time, Family Court Services, or the judge to have the kids in therapy, right? And then and have exchange monitors, and no exchanges happen. They happen at public places, and like from the very beginning. I think I'm understanding what you mean by get in front of it, which I didn't at the beginning of the show, because what's going to happen is, one, if they're fighting any of that stuff, it's not going to look good from the beginning, like the therapist, that they won't sign off, right?
Right.
The Our Family Wizard, they're either going to fight it and look bad, or it is going to capture everything and just by the nature of it, hold them accountable because it's bringing them into the light. Same thing with exchange monitors. That's interesting to me because I've known you for a long time, but haven't really thought of it that way as far as getting in front of all of, like, at the first sign, right?
Sure.
At the very first sign that the cat meows, decide it's a cat, right? And treat it like a cat, because it is not fun to try to unwind all this crap.
Right. So this is the piece of having a good coach. This is the piece of getting out in front of this on day one. So we've talked about some of the coaching work that I do, and some of the coaching work that I do is getting people prepared for family court services, one, and also getting the strategy out front for how they want to engage their attorney and to work that piece. And I work oftentimes with the attorneys and the clients simultaneously to unfold what we want to do. But one of the things that I do, and I think that this is absolutely important, is if I'm going to do family court service prep for somebody, the first thing that I do is I ask for all the declarations, for everything that's happened up to this point, what the pleadings are, and how the other party is responding. And I read them. And when I read them, I get a really good handle on the dynamic, especially when I'm having a real-time conversation with the person that's involved with this.
Mm-hmm.
And I can ask some questions, and I can dig down, and I can go, okay, I got it. This is what we're going to ask for, and this is why. And we're not going to go overboard. We're going to stay within the parameters of what is reasonable here, and we're going to let this unfold. But we're going to put this in a place where you are protected, and the children are protected, and that we're going to have a really hard time with somebody saying no to it because it is so transparent, right?
Yeah.
And when that happens in the front of a case, the case is managed down the road because we've got the pieces that we can monitor. We've got the pieces that can really watch this unfold and catch the inconsistencies, catch the incongruencies as they start to show up. We can map them out for the next time we're going to be in court, and then we can lay a better foundation for a better outcome.
Right.
Does this make sense?
It makes total sense. I mean, I'm finding myself, and I'm sure this is a common feeling for the listeners, thinking back to the first attorney. I'm like, why didn't I hear all this on day one? Because there were some very obvious signs that we were heading towards a high conflict divorce, right? About as obvious as it gets. And it's what's weird for me is like I hate being in the middle of this, and yet it's pretty exciting to think that somebody can get in front of this and have it go a little bit smoother. And here's something important, because I mean, if somebody's listening to this episode and they're like 2 weeks into a new divorce or whatever it is, it's like the perfect timing. You know, they're right there at day one. But for somebody who's 2 or 3 years into it, you're still at day one of however long this thing's really going to take, and you don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I'm sure the judges get kind of sick of it at 3 years or whatever the rule of thumb is, but that doesn't mean every divorce is over, in 36 months. And the thing is, divorce isn't the end. I know people that are divorced, and there's new things brought against them.
Right.
The court system doesn't say you can never come back to us.
Well, we've talked about negative intimacy, and we've talked about the conflict fishing that goes on with that in order to stay in the relationship through conflict. And when that's their only food, when that's the only ocean that they know how to go fishing in, that's where they're going to go every single time. And we just, we got to find a different place to swim. We've got to be able to discourage that long enough, hard enough, and have enough success from our side of it that they, at least on some level, look at their wallet before they go and say, I can't do this. I want to do it, and I got to find another way. But, we just keep shutting doors and locking them.
Yep.
Shutting doors and locking them and putting padlocks on and jamming up the windows and not giving them any way into the house.
Mm-hmm.
And if we do that out front, the thing that frustrates me, and I know that the listeners that are listening to this podcast are experiencing this piece, is so many attorneys, not all of them, but so many of them have a cookie cutter approach to this happens, this happens, this happens, this happens, we have to wait for this, we have to go here. And what I do in my coaching practice is I scramble all of that stuff up and I say, why?
Yeah.
I'm asking those questions. Why is it that this can't happen here? And can we do something like this over here? And when I bring that into the conversation with somebody that's used to doing it this way, I'll get one of two answers. The answer will be, wow, I never thought of it that way. Man, that could be really good. Let's go do it.
Yep.
Or that's just not the way it works. We have to do it this way. And when I hear that, I have oftentimes a real problem, because that's a shut off of a conversation that you do not want to hear something that you're going to have to think about. And this isn't, unfortunately, family law isn't law.
Yeah.
It's something else that is bastardized, that is something different, where people make decisions outside of what the law says you can do. Yeah. And when that happens, everybody sits back and goes, okay, now we've got a loophole. We can go over here and we can play games and we can scatter this up and we can take this person down by just wearing them out.
Yeah. And that's a strategy, really.
Right.
Well,
right. We're going to make you disappear because you can't fight this any longer.
Exactly.
Right.
Let's finish with this. This, you and I obviously didn't talk about this, but I'm going to give you a unsolicited sales pitch. One of the things I remember from the Our Family Wizard was them talking about they wanted to make the total cost of a year less than 1 hour's worth of legal work, right?
Right.
And it feels like, and in my situation, we're trying to be like, can we come up with a settlement just to end this thing that costs less than what it would cost me to pay to go another 3 months? You know what I mean?
Right.
There's a very real financial planning component of this. Like, you're going to pay money, right?
Right.
Do you feel confident? I know the answer because I've hired you for some of your services. Do you feel confident that a listener hiring you to help coach them will save them billable attorney's hours?
Absolutely. And that is without a doubt.
So no hesitancy. You go, yes.
Right. That I will save them attorneys' hours because they're going to call attorneys and ask them questions that attorneys can't answer because they're not legal questions. It's like, I'm all spun up here and they're doing this. What should I do? And the attorney can give them just so much, but the answer is let's really work this through for an hour and really see what needs to happen here. And then let's go in and have an answer for the attorney rather than a question for the attorney. Right. And that hour that they just spent with me is, a $200 hour versus a $500 hour that they're going to work out with an attorney, and they might not even got to a solution. They're still scratching their heads. So
Yeah.
that's part of the advantage of working with somebody like me that is a good divorce custody coach that stays out in front of this and helps solve the problems.
It sounds like you need a legal counselor, and that's their job. Cookie cutter, know the law, kind of fight for you. But then you need a behavior coach to get you in front of things, keep you from doing things they're going to use against you. And how do you coach somebody who's working with someone who's unstable on the other side? We're just not used to that.
Right. And having that person that's coaching you also really understand the system that they're in and how upside down and backwards this process is.
And then I know from participating in the group, it's not just you get to be friends with Brooke and get some great advice. There's also that piece, which I think the psychological community has proven that support groups are pretty darn helpful, right?
Yep.
You get that piece where you can be a part of a group of the rest of your clients through the classes and other people that are going through the same thing that you can talk to, or else you go nuts if you feel like you're the only one.
Yeah, it's not a place where you want to be hanging out by yourself. You really want to be able to hear where people are getting some help and getting some traction, but also doing that in an environment where when something comes up that is not the right thing to do, that somebody's doing, that they can be held in check. So having that moderator in the room, this isn't just a support group, this is a place of problem solving, and having that happen, which is a part of what our classes do as well.
Yeah, I've seen you when it gets off track. Everybody close your eyes. Let's take a breath. This is not a bashing session. So false allegations, if we talk about 70% of divorces kind of sail through. Healthy people, maybe they're upset, but they can handle it. But the 30%, with one or both sides unstable, turns into high conflict. That's the group of people that we're talking to. There's sure to be false allegations if you're in a high conflict divorce. Anything else you want to say?
It's almost inherent in it. The one thing that we didn't cover that this is kind of a quick bullet run at it, but when people get behind the 8 ball in this, we've talked about some of the things that we can put in it on the run that, we preferably want to do it when we start. We can do it when we're in the middle of it, but when we're digging out, this is the place where people get so charged. And what I want to tell them, just kind of in a bullet fashion, is don't be paranoid about what you think is going to come at you. Be prudent and be proactive.
But don't come from a place of fear, right?
Right.
Is it fair enough for the person to say, yes, I don't know what's coming, but hundreds of thousands of people like this have already laid a foundation for how they behave. Let's just assume that's all going to happen.
Exactly. Eyes wide open. Eyes wide open.
Right.
And when you are given a set of orders from a judge, when somebody has said, do this, do it, be compliant and be humble, because they're looking at you, and they're looking to see what your reaction is going to be.
Yep.
And you want to give them a congruent piece of, okay, I hear what you want me to do. I'm going to go do it. And then go beyond what's asked of you. This is showing that you hear, and no matter what you want to hear, that this is what you're going to take on, and you're going to be better at being a parent, at doing this piece that you're being asked to do. And then relax. This is so counterintuitive. This is so counterintuitive. But relax. This is just a blip unless you screw up.
Mm-hmm.
So don't screw up, because if you're wound up, the likelihood is much better that you're going to.
Yeah. Relax. These are relaxing environments, huh?
Right. Get help and get strategic. Take time to gather yourself. Under no circumstances, contact the other parent. And once this is under control and the TRO is dropped, put the things in place that we talked about earlier to make sure that you're protected going forward.
And TRO again is the
temporary restraining order.
Yeah, so some of the people listening are going to have the other side freaked out and hired or issued a temporary restraining order, right?
Right.
And the erring on caution means even if you didn't do anything wrong, you might have one slapped on you.
Yep.
And so you're saying once everything's under control and that thing's gone, so once the courts have sort of worked themselves through, you're safe, it's fine, it was just a whatever, right? What do you want them to do now? What do you want our people to do?
Put everything in place that we talked about earlier so it doesn't happen again, because they'll take another run at you.
So now get in front of it. So if you've taken a hit, right, 2 steps back, right? Mm-hmm. When that's lifted, jump right in front of it and implement everything you're talking about. Go overboard.
That's right.
And isn't that how we squash all enemies? Like, you've got sickness or whatever it is, or I don't know what it is, I'm not a doctor, but you take a whole bunch of antibiotics for 7 days, right? Just wham, crush it, right? Same thing, I always used to say that about Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee one-on-one is going to beat most people, but you get like 100 guys with machine guns, they're going to kill him, right?
Right.
So just go on the heavy attack, use all the tools, and try to limit or squash this attack that's coming against you, right?
Yep.
Awesome. Well, guys, this episode's been about false allegations, and that's we know a lot of you guys are going through that. There'll be a little commercial at the end, sort of how to reach Brooke from his websites and the books that he has. But Brooke, a lot of people have been interacting with you. I know that the show is growing. It's really exciting to see that, because it's not a show where we're selling the newest and greatest widget, right? That doesn't do a lot for people's lives. These are lives that are changing, and people are getting the help that they need. Which someone who has, being someone who's gone through it, I'm pretty stoked that people are getting the help they need faster than I did.
This is just things that people don't know. And my goal through everything that I've done through all of the years that I've been doing this, and this seems to be the best outlet so far, is to give that information so people can wake up to make the changes that they need to make.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up. This has been Charlie Jewett talking with Brooke Olson. Again, Brooke Olson is I don't know, do I call you the Mac Daddy? I don't know. You're the guy that I know that knows the most about this stuff. It's not fun to go to, but it is part of life. We'll be back next Friday with another episode. Tune in. So glad to have you listening. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Brooke, people don't have to wait until Friday mornings to get more content. If this is something that's helpful for them, right? This isn't the first time you've broadcast anything or recorded anything or put anything out there in the world. What are the other ways people can get the help more aggressively or speed up their recovery process? What materials are available for people right now?
Well, I've written a book called The Black Hole of High Conflict, and it's available on Amazon and Kindle.
Great.
And everything that we're talking about is really compressed and put into there. So this is a really good starter place to get in and get your mind working and to see what these concepts are about and how to start to apply them. The other place that I think that is valuable is to go to our website and look at some of the blog articles that I've written. Those are available there as well. They go into some of these other arenas, and that's at www.highconflict.net. So the book, the website are also really good places to get the material. And also we have classes. We have high conflict diversion program classes that you can get into and get some one-on-one help with this as well.
And you know me, I'm aggressive. Whatever I want to become good at or learn, I find someone who's good at it and pay them and hire them and shorten my learning curve. What if somebody just wants your help? Somebody says, Brooke has this information. He's good at something I'm not good at yet, and I want to work with him. Do you have any type of coaching or consultations or anything like that?
Absolutely, I do. I do one-on-one coaching for custody cases. I help people get ready for family court services. If you've got that in your community, I work with attorneys and clients to help them with managing and strategically setting them up to have more successful cases as well.
And how do they reach out? You want them to just go to the website or email or phone, or what's the best way for them to reach out, raise their hand, and say, I need some help?
They can email me. My direct email is brooke@highconflict.net. That's BROOK at highconflict, HIGH, conflict.net.
Perfect. That's everything everybody would need to get some help, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Brooke.